Good morning, everyone. This is Sharon. Today we are in for a bit of a long haul on this journal as I take you through the latest custom journal that I made. This is a prayer journal for Christine, and I used a book that is quite large. It's almost 8 by 10, and I created this closure on the front using this dusty pink velvet ribbon. I just love that. And then I trimmed that up on the end with this piece of trim, and I think that goes really nicely with the cover. I just kind of cinched it up a little bit with this hat pin. I didn't want anything too elaborate or fancy. I have a little bit of vintage jewelry here that adds some bling to it as well. I have this ribbon attached to this doily, and I've got that kind of wrapped around to the back. And that is attached, so it's all one piece. And then, let me get this way out of the way. Okay, this is the cover. I just love this book cover. It's really beautiful. It kind of speaks for itself. I didn't want to do anything to alter the front or any of it, really. I had to do quite a bit of repair. It's got a nice thick spine, so I didn't have to expand that at all. But I did have to do quite a bit of repair. The covers were removed from the spine, so I had to reattach and do some gluing and reinforcing on that. And this is what the back looks like. It has 11 signatures and about 200 pages, so it will take us a little bit to get through it. As we head on inside, I used this old, it's vintage or antique, I'm not sure. It's a French kind of a linen fabric for the spine. And then on the covers, I decided to use these. I've got a floral, and on the back side, I've got a fruit. It's a French plate. And I just love the colors in it. I think it went really well with the cover and the colors inside. And I just think if this is a prayer journal, some of the things that we're grateful for include flowers and fruits, so I think that went well with it. This is the title page of the book, and it's just beautiful. And this book is estimated to be from the late 1800s. There was not a date in it, but the person I bought it from estimated that, and I would agree just based on the styling of it. I think I'm going to need a little bit of a prop under here. Okay, so on this page, I created a fabric pocket and just added a little bit of lace on there, and then stamped the back. And then in there, I've got an old German book page, another book page from poems, and then this beautiful image of this basilica. Here I've got beautiful coffee dyed papers. These are not mine, I purchased those. And I just added this wool tab to the top. And then there are a number of pictures, mostly of an adult Jesus that the owner provided me. So those I've incorporated throughout. Here I did some embossing on handmade paper and added that to the page. And then on this page I created a pocket in the upper right hand corner. Now, one thing that I should tell you is I've got lots of digitals in here from different makers. Some are my own, a lot of them are Roxy Creations, quite a few of them are Roxy Creations. So rather than talk about them as I go through, because I probably won't even remember, I'll just list as best that I can all the ones, all the shops that I used in my description. So in this pocket, I've got this antique letter or envelope, and then in there, I just inserted a couple of cards that I made. I've got this lace image on the back of the page. In the center here, I've got landscape. I really love using these old landscape images in my prayer journals. Here I created a shallow pocket with this ribbon image, and then in there I put this card with a pocket. And then I created this journaling card, some antique ledger on the back. And then there's some stenciling on the back of that as well. Here I created a side tuck and just embellished a little bit with some cheesecloth and some fancy stitching on there. And then in there I've got this journaling card, and then this is an antique invoice copy from 1923. Almost antique, not quite. Throughout this journal, I also incorporated a lot of the original book pages. This is not one, but there are some, quite a few throughout. This is actually from a bird book that I have, an antique bird book. I've had to do a lot of, what do I want to say, where I had to glue 2 pages together to create the signature, because an 8.5 by 11 sheet, you just can't get, the full sheet in there. So where I hinge was the word I was trying to think. A lot of times I'll do like a decorative punch on there and then glue that to the new sheet. I love these beautiful dark tones on these images. Here I created a little flip with this image of the church. And then up here again, I used some cheesecloth and some fancy stitching on there, and that flips up. And this is part of the table of contents of the book. Here I created a pocket and added a little bit of paper lace to that. Some more trim on the top with this piece of seam binding. And then in there I tucked this journaling card with some stitching lines on there. And then I created this card with, this is an antique postcard album sheet. I just added some things to that. Picture of Mary and Jesus, and then I've got a fabric tab on that page. On this page, I have another shallow pocket, and in there, this is what the back looks like. I've got this tag. This is made from a flash card, and this is made from an envelope, actually. This is what the back looks like. Got a wax seal on there. And then I have this piece of ephemera from New Zealand. This is from a vintage flower book. And an avocado dyed doily. Silk ruffle on that page, and then another landscape in the center. On this page, I created a double tuck on the top using these beautiful lace images from Roxy Creations, and this is a page, a book page. And then in there, I tucked this card, which opens up. I've got a side tuck in here and on this side, and then I just inserted this journaling card. And this is an antique book page from an old French book. I just did a fancy punch on the bottom of that page. Here I did a little bit of stenciling with some paste. On this page, I created a pocket with this image, and then in there I've got this tag, and then a pocket in the back. Here I created a shallow pocket with this kind of trim image, and then in there I've got this antique prayer card, which I'm not going to take out. It's quite delicate. It's very lacy along the edges, but I just thought that fit in there quite well. Another little cluster here with the wax seal on it. Here I embellished this page a little bit. This is an image from the Graphics Fairy. And I love using these striped linen cloth as tabs. Here I created a top tuck, and then in there I've got this tag. And then this is just a vintage book page, but I love using these in my journals, especially where I have blue, because it's got this really rich blue typing on it. And it's got a lot of space for journaling on the back. I just added some washi on the top of that. In the center of this signature, I have this image, which is a separate page from this one, but I created these little tabs on the side and just stitched them on. And so those kind of tuck in there for a little secret spot. And then in there, I've got these little tucks where I put some cards that I made. This is an antique check that I just cut in two and used for the backs of these cards. So then there's one on this side as well. And I did a little stamping on the top of that page as well. One of the original book pages. Here I create a large side tuck with this doily image. And then in there, I've got this little booklet. Just has some fun space for journaling or writing notes and things. And this is a page from a botanical, kind of an encyclopedia book. Old sheet music. Recently, I went on an antique hunt and found some beautiful old trims. And this is a nice old antique piece. I used that for a pocket on this page. And then in there, I've got, this is an envelope. I love this envelope. It's really thin. It's kind of a vintage airmail one, but I just love the colors in it. And in there, I've put this card I made from a lotto card, but it's got this book page and some verses on it. And this is a very tall tag. Got some vintage fabric on the top of that. And then I just added this onion skin sheet for some writing on the back side. This is, you probably can't appreciate it on film, but it's a really beautiful book plate from a bird book that I have. And this is actually a separate sheet that was glued onto the page, but it's really thick in the colors. I just love the rich colors in there. Here I added this piece of fabric, which I got from Rachel at Roxy Creations in one of my fabric packs. And I just trimmed it up with some lace on the top. This is a book page from a book I have on the Biltmore estate, but there's some really lovely images in there, and I just embellished that a bit. Here I created a large pocket with a piece of antique wallpaper, and then trimmed the top a little bit with some of that paper lace, and then I've got a couple of journaling cards in that pocket. Tag. This is a botanical book page. Some Tim Holtz vellum. Here I added, this is like a lilac colored velvet ribbon. And this is a very old, I believe it's French, an old French tome from the 1700s. And what I did with this ribbon is just bring it up and over the page and hang it down. And this kind of acts as sort of a weight to keep these pages in. And I just stitched it across the top there. Added a little embellishment on there. And then because these pages are so large, I folded them in on the side and the bottom just to create a little tuck in this corner. And then in there, I've got these beautiful pages from a French embroidery book that I have. And then in the center, I've got, this is an original prayer card. It's got some beautiful French writing on the back. And then this image I have in the center. And then on this side, another one of those embroidery book pages. Just love the rich colors on those. Here I created a belly band, and I just embellished it a little bit extra with this little band on there. It actually does slide up and down, but I just thought because it is so large, it just needed a little bit of something extra, and I put a stamp on there. And then behind there, I've got this card. Again, this is one I made from an antique postcard album. And this is an original postcard. On this page, I have this large vintage envelope, and I just created a flip out with that. So that flips out. It's got this beautiful image, book page image. And then I have this inside of the envelope I embellished, and the outside as well. And then in there, I've got this, I call these document keepers, but just like a little trifold. I've put some twine on here. But it basically opens up, and then inside, got some papers in there. These are all vintage or antique papers. And then this is just some stenciling that I did on the back. And then on the back side of this, this is an image of an old catalog of like religious articles and furniture. Another page from the book, and I just embellished the side a little bit with some ribbon and antique wallpaper. Here I added, this is actually a digital image that I glued onto this page and then added a little bit of lace on the top. This is an antique ledger sheet that I used for this page, and then I created this pocket, added this little fabric trim where I did some decorative stitching on there. And then in there, I created this journaling spot. Some of my treated napkin. I'll pull this out now. Okay, this is an Edith Holden book page, and I just took some sari trim and added that. I thought the colors went really well. Wrap that around and over the page. And here I created a corner tuck and embellished this envelope. I don't know if you're like me, but I've been throwing away these envelopes for years. It's where you get the stickers, your license plate renewal stickers in. And I got one the other day and I thought, oh, that's a really nice size envelope and 2 windows. So I'm going to start keeping those. I just embellished it with all these papers. And then inside there, I've got couple of journaling cards. In the center of this signature, I've got these really pretty lace images, and I created some shallow pockets. And then in there, I created these journaling cards, and there's a writing sheet on there, and then some decorative paper underneath. This one. Here I've got another corner tuck, and in there I've got this, was one of the original book pages. I just love that image. And then also what I found in this book were a number of pressed leaves. And so I thought I would preserve those, and those needed to go with the book. So I pressed them with one of the book pages and, or not pressed them, but laminated them so that they would be preserved. And just stuck several of those in here. Here I created a little bit of a flip out there and then a pocket on there for this narrow tag. I've got that image, and then this is some old antique ledger paper, and it had these tabs G and H, so I had to leave those on. Here I trimmed up this page a little bit, and then over here I created an extremely wide belly band with this stenciled paper. And then I trimmed it a little bit with this trim on the bottom and a button. And then in there I've got this antique book page. This is some antique wallpaper that I used to make the page. And I used this image as my corner tuck. And then I just tuck this card in there. Again, some of the antique ledger paper on the back. Here, this side, I've got a shallow tuck and embellished that a little bit. And then I've got this journaling card and another piece of an old invoice from 1923. This had some blank space. I thought that would be great for notes, so I just added that little note piece on the top there. And then here I created a flip out with this image. And in there I tucked this beautiful old antique title page. It's from 1911, and it's just got this beautifully embossed image on there. In the center, I've got this image, and then this side is another flip out where you could tuck some things in there. Here I created a pocket with this beautiful bird and some paper lace, and in there I've got this antique original French letter from 1867. It's quite old. I'm not going to unfold it, but you can unfold the whole thing. It's got some beautiful writing on the inside. Here I created a side tuck, added this image, and then in there I've got quite a large little, that makes sense, huh? A large journaling spot. And then I just created a side tuck on there. Ample space for writing inside. And this is just a piece of wallpaper that I created for the base. Here I created a pocket, again with some antique trim that I found and a little bit of lace. And in there I've got this card. I used a brad to just kind of cinch up a few pieces of paper. On the back is an embossed sheet. And then on there I hung this little medal. And the back side I created a little pocket so you can stick something in there if you'd like. Here I created this side tuck, and in there I have this tag. This is a piece of vellum that I printed on, and in there I just tucked this photo of this lady. Here's some French ledger paper. Here I've got some side tucks that match on both sides, and then in there I created, this is some vintage wallpaper. I just trimmed that up a little bit and inserted some brads to create these fabric swatch cards. I just use some of my own fabrics, and then in the background I've got these labels on there. I just thought those were fun. And what I thought you could do with those is that could be your base, and then I added some extra sheets of this really pretty paper. It's almost see-through, but you could use this for writing and then just attach those onto the brads as like a little notebook or something. I've got a similar one on this side, same thing. I've got extra papers, and then these are the swatches on this one. And then in the center of the signature, I've got this image. Here I created a corner tuck with this piece of embroidery. It's got some nice pretty crocheted lace on the bottom as well. And then here's another one of those pressed leaves. These look like ferns that were in the book. And then this is some of that wallpaper. I added a little cluster up here with some paper, lace, linen, and wax seal on there, and there's a piece of velvet in there too. On this side of the page, it's another one of those large tome pages. So again, I've got it folded in on the side and on the bottom. I did some stenciling with paste on the bottom, added this trim on the side, and then this extra little piece from that doily that I used. And then in there I tucked, this is an original postcard. And then this is an image that I scanned. It was the inside of the front cover. And I knew I wanted to cover it up because it wasn't the most appealing, but I did want to preserve the history on there. And it looks to me like this book was originally presented to Janet for completing a religious studies. And that was in December of 1885. So I guess that does date the book, doesn't it? Here I've got some map for the book page, and then I've got this card that flips over the top. And I just created that with these images, and then on the inside I lined it with wallpaper, and it's got some treated napkin, and then a place to write at the bottom. And then this image is on the back side. Here I created a pocket with a vintage envelope. I think this is from Switzerland maybe. And then in that pocket I've got this tag, and there's a little area that flips out for some writing on the back, and then another one of those pressed leaves sheet. Here I've got another pocket that I embellished, and then that's made from another envelope. Got this tag in there, and then this little journaling sheet made from, it's an old ledger sheet from the 1930s. On this page, I've got this envelope that I made from a digital. And then in there, tucked a couple of things. Then here's the other side of that page that I created similar to the other side. Just have an extra tuck in there again. And then I've got this little booklet in there that's got some pockets and tucks and things in there where you could insert some treasures. I've got a tag in one of these. And then this is an antique check from 1911. Did I? Yeah, okay. Corner tuck, and then in there I've got this tag that I made. And I just crinkled up this green paper on the back. Thought that added some nice texture. And then this is a family record sheet. It's a digital, I believe this, I'm not sure where this came from, if it's Graphics Fairy or somewhere else. And then there's some writing space on the back of that. Side tuck here, and then in there I've got this little sheet that opens up. It's on a piece of really old book page. And then I've attached, there's a little belly band in there, but I did pin it in so it stays. And then I've just got this little grouping of papers and cards and things. Here, what I did for the center of this signature, I just love this image. This is actually 2 different pages, this page here and then this page, and I glued them together so that they created one single page. And by doing that, it created a pocket right here. And so I tucked a couple of cards into those pockets. This actually just folds up on the back. And then this is a vellum sheet. But you could tuck something in there if you wanted to. And then there's the center. And then this side, there's another pocket. Had to add this pretty bird onto this map page. I'm not sure why. I just thought it looked good there. Here's a corner tuck that I made, and then in there I added this journaling card. I don't know if I should prop this side up now. We're just about to the end. Okay. On this page, these are actually velvet squares, and I don't know if you can see it on film or not, but I embossed them. And it's not real clear, but if you just kind of push it a certain way, you might be able to see the embossing on it a little bit. I hand stitched those to some muslin and then glued those to the page. Here I created a pocket from an antique postcard, and then in there I have this little envelope bundle. And this is an envelope from one of Rachel's latest kits. I just left it open. I did not glue it. I just thought it would be fun to kind of tuck some things in there, and then you could use the inside for writing. This is in that same kit. Looks like it should have been an envelope. But I just use it as kind of a card for writing. It's got some really beautiful pink linen on there. And then I put this inside this tag. And I just have a little bit of dotted tulle on the back. I thought for an extra embellishment on these, since I left them open, I just punched the sides of those to fancy them up a little bit. Here I've got a corner tuck that's kind of layered up with some antique book pages and this image. And then in there I tucked these sheets. This is from a book that I have on the Psalms of David. Here I just added, for some interest, this little short sheet, and then I punched this piece of cardstock and added that on there for trim. And then in the center of this signature, I've got these 2 little tucks that it's kind of fussy cut these images out. And then in there, I created these cards. And this one as well. Here I have a beautiful piece of lace that I've kind of been hoarding, but I thought it looked really good in here, so I put it in. It's just gorgeous. It's an antique collar. And I added some other trim on the top as well. And then that's on a piece of music. Here I created a side tuck, something a little bit different, I thought, to kind of jazz it up a little bit. What I did was I cut an oval, and then I cut that oval in half, and I took each half and wrapped it around my page. So this one I wrapped around, and you can see comes across on this side, so you've got a similar side tuck on this side. Top and bottom I did that, and then in the center I just added this image of an old German book page. And this is actually a double layer, so there's kind of like a little tuck in there as well. So in that side tuck, I have this piece of wallpaper. It's kind of like a wallpaper border, I think. And then on the back of that, it's an extra large one. I've got this large pocket, and in there I've got a few pieces of antique ephemera. And then on this side, I've got this fruit image and some stenciling on the back of that, and a nice large space for journaling. Here I've got a belly band and this journaling card in there. And then here I created a little side tuck, embellished it with some, it's like a wool thread, and then a little piece of velvet. And then I've got this tag in there. On this page, I took a round doily image, and again, I wrapped this one up and over the page and stitched it on, so we've got a tuck on both sides of the page. And then in the center here, I've got this pocket, and then in there I've got this antique postcard from 1911. Then another tuck on this side as well. And on this side, I've got this sheet of Notre Dame, a place to write on the back. Here with this image, I created a pocket, and in there I just have this paper doily that I glued onto a book page, and then I've got this image on the back. Here I created a pocket, and this is a vintage card or page. It looks like a vintage prayer card of some sort. I've got a stamp on the back. And then on this side, I've got this piece of embroidery. I cinched these down with 2 brads on the top. And then this is some antique religious fabric from a religious vestment, I believe. And we made it to the back side. This is the image that I put on the back. So that was quite a project. It took a while to finish, but I really enjoy trying to figure out, how to be creative with such large journals. So Christine, I hope you like your journal, and until next time, bye-bye.